Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining End of Life Conversation and Reflections. Today, my guest is Shahiroz Walji. Simply put, Shahiroz Walji is a lover of spirit. Shahiroz has spent her life studying world religions and cultures and has a degree in metaphysics, as well as a diverse portfolio of certifications in psychic development. Her passion is to connect with and share the work and gifts of the light workers that she attracts to her vortex. She has been organizing and hosting workshops over the years and has brought together people from all over the world to help raise their vibration. You can watch her many interviews dealing with the metaphysical and paranormal at themetaphysicalhub.com. Welcome, Shahiroz, and thank you for taking the time to share your perspectives on death and dying with us today.
Thank you, Zara. Thank you for having me. We appreciate you.
Thank you. So I always like to start by asking people about a childhood experience around death and dying. Is there one that stands out for you?
So when I was approximately 9-10 years old, my grandma, she was very ill. She was diagnosed with cancer, stomach cancer. And my grandma and I were very, 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 very close. And so what happened was, I come home from school one day and my grandma's not where she normally is. And I hear conversations going around and families all over. And, imagine a young kid thinking and wondering what's going on. And all of a sudden I hear this thing, that, she doesn't have much time. And can you imagine a little kid and the feeling they have in their heart when they're hearing their grandmother? What does this mean, right? Like, I don't have much time, or she doesn't have much time. And so, afterwards, like, I went to my grandma and I said, what is this? She's like, no, nothing's going to happen. Don't worry. Everything will be fine. And so then, okay, so the doctors say, in my head, I'm, as a little kid, I'm thinking, the doctors say she only has like 2 weeks to live, spend as much time with her as you can. She's saying everything's going to be fine, and like her tummy was really big because it was stomach cancer. She had a tumor in there, like she looked pregnant. And so 2 weeks go by and she goes for her tests. And meanwhile, I witnessed this. Her belly that was humongous basically became flat. And the results come back and say, we don't know, there must have been a mistake or something because there's no tumor. And so somehow, some way in that time period, tumor was and then tumor wasn't, and her belly was and her belly wasn't. So I had this kind of thing, well, the doctor's saying she has cancer, but my grandma said everything's fine. And she was the one who was right, because everything's fine. And so as a little kid, I had a really lack in trust in the medical system and doctors. I more trusted the spiritual, because her words to me were, she used the term Mola will take care of everything. Don't worry. So God will take care of everything. Don't worry. And so to me, it was like, okay, well, God is my source for anything I need. And, as long as I trust God, well, then nothing can go wrong. So as a young kid, I had a ton of faith in that belief, right? I witnessed it with my own eyes.
Sorry, go ahead.
And sure enough, the time came when it was for her to pass too. But go ahead and ask me your question and then I'll continue.
Yeah, I was just curious, like, what do you think she was doing in that period where she had so much faith? Like, do you know if she was engaging in any spiritual practice, or what do you think she was doing that led to her stomach going flat and the cancer disappearing?
So one thing I would say is she had implicit faith in what she was saying to me. And that, it wasn't anything could control what was happening to her body other than God, basically, or in her case, Mola, right? There was nothing else that could control what would happen to her other than God. And so that implicit faith, I'm certain, played a part, because I've seen it again and again talking to people. As being in the metaphysical field, I meet a lot of people who are interested in death and dying, are experiencing death and dying, and with various natural modalities out there, Reiki and energy healing and frequency healing and Rife machines and all that stuff. I've heard so many stories of people who have come through their fatality of disease. And the number one thing I noticed in all of them is this fact that they have this solid faith in whatever it is that they're battling, and there is a higher power that they believe in. And so that's number one. Number two, she was praying. You know, my grandma, she would sit in meditation. 12 o'clock comes around and she'd grab her prayer beads and sit and pray at noon every day. So my grandma was very devoted to her faith and meditation and chanting, silent chanting, vocal chanting. And so I'm definite also that practice definitely played a part in keeping her in a state that was a believing person, keeping her in a state that would be able to receive the possibility of a healing.
And then what led to her ultimate, like, was it the cancer that ultimately showed up again, or how did it all?
So, so when I was 9 or 10, so it was only a year later that the cancer showed up again. But it was interesting because shortly before the cancer showed up again, we had a spiritual visit from our spiritual leader, and she went to be in homage of that experience. And shortly after that, she says to me, her granddaughter, she says, okay, my time is here now. I've had my meeting with my Lord, and now I know my time is here and I'm going to go. But don't worry, this happens for everyone. You know, it's a good place I'm going to, and where I'm going is where we all go one day, right? And so she explained it to me. So I had no fear of what was to come for her because she'd already prepared me. Right. As well, I had no fear of this whole experience of death because she prepared me. And everything she said to me was actually falling in truth, because nothing's going to happen, nothing happened. Mm-hmm. She was fine. Then she says, okay, now it's going to happen. And it's, you know, it's just something, a fact of life. And you're just going to have to recognize that this is going to happen to me. And don't worry, I'm not going to be in any pain. It's going to be very good and everything. And so shortly after she says this to me, all of a sudden I notice that her belly is expanding again. And her tumor came back, apparently. And it was, you know, months after that she passed. And I remember my dad being by her bedside and her saying to him, you know, take care of Shalu. She called me Shalu as a nickname. She said, take care of Shalu. And, you know, she's a special girl or whatever she said to him. But I was there listening to those words as she was saying it. So it was very intimate for me, that whole experience of death through my grandmother, which was my very first experience at death.
Wow. Like, she really prepared you. She talked about it. And
right,
like now where people would hide it from their kids. But
yeah.
So what, you know, after she died, I mean, were there any things that helped you with your grieving, or was it knowing that she had affirmed that, you know what, she was going to be fine? Or are there any things you engaged in to help you through your grieving process?
I was really mad, for one.
Yeah. Okay.
Because, well, yes, she had prepared me, but still I was a 9-10-year-old kid. And still it was like all of a sudden like this, the love of my life, for lack of a better word, because that's the only love I really knew, my grandmother's love at that time, the most love I could ever experience or feel, is like gone like that. You know, she closes, 1 minute her eyes are open, next minute her eyes are closed, and she's gone. She's like gone.
Yeah.
And, you know, we go to the funeral and all that, and I dealt with all that as a child. But it made me really feel that this world was a cruel world instead of, even though she had prepared me, even though she said she was going to be a good place. This is where my disbelief came in, because up to this point, everything was happy and everything was flowing the way she said it would. And although she said that she was in a good place, now I wasn't happy.
Right.
So here's where my disbelief starts. And here's where my fear of death starts. And here's where, just out of the whole experience of uncertainty.
Right. It's your first experience knowing what that means, like death meaning you're never going to see your grandmother again in the physical form.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And then going forward, like, were there any other experiences in your life, you know, as an adult or even as a child, that stand out for you?
Well, then I was prepared for, like, you know, my grandpa's death, because he became my next best friend then. And I was prepared. I knew what this experience was. I knew, you know, someday he would leave. So I detached myself for anyone I really loved, really, to that point where, okay, this is not forever. They're not here forever. And chances are, even though we don't know, you will probably be here longer than they will. So I had that built into me now. And so it wasn't as dramatic, but I had my own spiritual experiences as time was progressing. Because the one thing my grandma did was prepare me for prayer and meditation. So I loved prayer, I loved meditation, I loved going to our mosque to perform rituals. I loved all that. It was like my greatest joy and experience. And I benefited from it by, you know, what I experienced on a spiritual level.
Around death and dying, have you ever had a visitation or anything like that from someone that has died?
So, well, first visitation I'll speak of is probably the one my mom had, because when my grandma died, they were also worried about me, that I slept with my mom that night. And I'm lying in bed with her, and my mom's having an experience where my grandma's telling her, and I'm lying beside her, so this conversation's happening in her sleep, and you know, take care of her, you know, I'm fine, but take care of her because she'll need you now, she'll need you more than ever. And I'm, you know, so now I know there's this conversation that can take place between the other side and our side, because I'm witnessing it. Okay. So I have that belief and knowing already from a very young age. So as I'm growing up, it's not foreign to me to have someone tell me about this. It's not something I'm in disbelief about either. And so in regards to my experiences, I've actually had several, but the one that stands out the most to me is as an adult, I was in my apartment. I was on my own in my apartment. I had left my husband, who I'd separated from, and I was on my own. And, you know, when you're on your own for the first time, you may have that, you know, fear of being alone, or that uncertainty of what it's going to be like. Anyways, I basically was in my apartment, and there was a glass table there. And I somehow tripped or fell, and my head was going to hit the corner of the glass table. And I swear I saw my grandma's hand come and move under my head, push it away so it doesn't hit the table. And I didn't hit the table. My head didn't hit the table. It hit the carpet on the ground instead.
So your grandma's looking out for you in this world.
Absolutely.
And so what are your beliefs around what happens to people after they die? Like, what happens to their, like, their soul continues on? Like, what's your belief around that? Where's your grandma right now? I mean, besides guiding you, what are your perspectives on that?
So I've had a few experiences, and I guess since we're talking about my grandma, I'll go back to her, but I've had experiences with others as well. But my grandma, for example, we're driving by the cemetery one day, and I don't know why, I just blurted out because we were driving by, and I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking, hey, Ma is here, my grandma's here, right? And I'm like, Yali Madat Ma, as in, hi, Ma, or hi, how are you? Just, I don't know why I did that. Well, that night I had a dream, right? And my grandma comes back and tells me, Malali Madat Beta, I'm fine, how are you? And I just woke up immediately after that dream because I was like, what, right? So somehow she heard me. Like, I have to believe that she heard me, because I don't dream like that all the time. I have dreams about what's going on in my life right now,
Yeah.
Whatever's happening in my life right now is what I would dream about, not my grandma coming and saying, hi, how you doing?
Yeah.
So, and then another dream I had it was really strange. My grandma, in my dream, I see my grandma in a motorcycle, and my grandpa's with her. Now, he's passed as well. They're both on this motorcycle, and they drive by my parents used to own a motel at the time. And when they drive in this motorcycle to the front door of the motel, and she waves at me, and I'm in the window, and she waves at me, so I come outside because I see them, and she says, Beta, send fruit to Kane. And I don't know why or what she wanted me to do that, but then that act happens. I do that act of sending fruit, and then she comes back and thanks me, and I see all this fruit around her. Like, I see all this fruit around her in the dream, as if what I sent to her actually reached her in a multiplied form. So it's a very unique experience for me, and it was a very unique experience in general.
Yeah.
Now,
you're with a lot of people. Sorry?
I just wanted to also add that in that experience, when I saw them, I saw both of them, my grandpa and my grandma. It was like they were like so grateful and so elated that I actually followed through on what they asked. And so I just wanted to add that too.
Right, because they're like, she can hear us, right? She believes in, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you're having regular kind of communion with them. You're connecting with them here and there.
So you said the word regular, so it's not regular though. It's like in pockets of times in certain instances, and it hasn't happened in the longest time, but that was really close to the time that both of them passed, and it was at that time, and it had to have been within like 40 days of their passing, kind of thing. After that, I haven't really much had experience with them, except for that time which I shared with you, where my head was about to hit the table.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And what about you? You connect with a lot of people who are engaged in spiritual work.
Yeah.
Is there a story around death and dying that resonates or stands out that you'd like to share?
Well, recently I had the opportunity to speak to, I didn't get to interview him. I wish one day I'm able to, but the person who wrote the book called Saved by the Light, Daniel Brinkley, I got an opportunity to speak to him very briefly, but because that opportunity of speaking to him was coming up, I went back and read his book and watched the movie. There's a movie called Saved by the Light as well, and his stories in there. And he's been struck by lightning 4 times in his life now, and gone to the other side and come back, and knows that he had to come back to complete work that he has to do here that he hasn't. He's been, struck by lightning while he's holding a phone. He's been on a hospital, in the hospital under surgery for heart, and like all these things, he just keeps coming back. So it's not like one time back, it's more than one time back. And there's another individual that comes to mind right now too, Paul Elder, who also had similar experiences of I'll use the word contact, because he's also had alien encounters as well. and near-death experiences. And he too has had more than one. So first off, first thing I want to say is when people talk about, you know, I had a near-death experience, well, there's people out there who've had more than one near-death experience, not just come back once, but come back more than once. So what does that say now?
Yeah. So fascinating, all of that.
Absolutely.
I don't want to say I want to have a near-death experience, but sometimes I wonder, like, I want to know what's there before I die.
Well, I'll tell you mine if you want.
Oh, yeah.
So I was kind of at wit's end, and I'm like, okay, and you know, we all do this all the time, right? Well, like, you know, we get to this wit's end, but I think I have a connection that's somehow different than, because it seems to happen more regularly for me. But anyways, it's true for everyone. Everyone can connect. I don't want to single myself out. But I did it. I said those words, you know, okay, God, take me. I can't take it anymore. I can't handle this. Just take me, right? Now, this happened in my sleep, so I can't confirm if it was actually a near death or it was a dream or what it was, or vision, but it was certainly different than any other dream I've had because it was way more dramatic. It was way more vibrant and way more real. So I had the experience, the very same experience everyone talks about, that, you know, you go through this tunnel, you pass this tunnel, your life flashes in front of you. But this life flashing in front of me part, I saw it starting, and all of a sudden I'm standing at this edge. I don't know what I want to call it. And the edge is the only word that comes to my mind. And on one side is my spiritual leader. On the other side, there's this gold line underneath. I'm on this other side. And he says to me, he's like, come on, you wanted to come, right? Let's go. I'm like, no. I don't want to go yet. And he's like, no, come on. You said you wanted to. Your will is my will. Come on, let's go. And I got the feeling like, you know, he knew I wasn't going to cross. And he knew that I'm not ready for this. Like it felt like he was playing with me.
Yeah.
And so I said, no, I'm really sorry. I should take my words more seriously. I shouldn't have said what I said. I really value my life. I do want to go back. I don't want to cross over. And he goes, you have and then his tone changed. He said, you have lots to do. You have so much to do yet. And you have so many people to teach and so many people to share what you learn with and learn from them as well.
Yeah.
And so if you want to cross right now, you can, but once you do, you cannot go back. And so I basically held my hands like this, and I said, shook her, please, I don't want to go. I would like to go back. I will do everything I can to fulfill these words that you said, to help people and to share and to learn from them and to teach them.
Wow. And
just then, like a snap, I went through that weird feeling of that tunnel again. Yeah. I come back into my house, and I know I'm not really actually there yet because there's doves all around me, but I'm in my house. And then I'm like, oh my God, am I dead? Because why is there doves around me? This isn't like, this is my house, but I'm like, and then as soon as I had that thought, I was back in my bed and my eyes were open. It didn't feel like they ever closed. They were open. So I don't know. Was that a dream? Wasn't that a dream? But that was my experience.
But were you changed after is the main thing? Like, were you?
Absolutely. I looked at life differently. Yeah. But oh my God, that feeling of okay, take me now. I'm done. Please take me now. Kept coming back more and more and stronger and stronger. But I had to keep fighting it. It was like, you already made this promise now. You can't use these words lightly. You can't think these words lightly. And but now it comes back stronger. Like my life feels like, you know, like, come on, enough already, you know?
Yeah.
And but
yeah. And it is a short passage, right? So
right.
Yeah. Do you have any fears around your own death and dying? Like, are you afraid of dying? Are you afraid of dying a certain way? Are you afraid of not having tied up things before you die? Like, if you were to, you know, fast forward to the time, you know, when you're older, elderly. Hope you live a very long life. But how do you envision that? And do you have any fears around that?
So I want to share one thing with you. I will answer your question, but because you mentioned, you know, when you grow older, what do you see?
I hope you die when you get older. Like, I don't want to, you know, I want to assume you're going to, and hope and pray that you're going to live a very long life.
Absolutely.
And so if you were to fast forward, you know, and I want to put it in that context because I know we can all die any moment.
We can all die any moment. I could die after this.
Yeah, but let's say you lived a long life and you got to pick and choose, you know, like what you do before then, or like if you were to fast forward to that place.
Here's what I understand from my own experiences is that it's your choice. Number one is it's your choice. So if you're in a position where you feel you're in a fatal disease or a car accident and you feel like, oh my God, what's going to happen to me? Am I going to die? The one thing to know in that moment is whether or not that happens, you have a choice in it. And it's your choice and God's choice. And when those two combine, nothing is going to change that. So remember that in that moment, if you're ever in that moment.
Okay, so not something fatal, but let's say you were just getting old and dying of old age. Your body is just releasing from this world.
Yeah.
You know, that's like living a long life, and then just your body is ready to. So, and your soul is ready to leave your body.
Do I have any fears? No, I don't. I don't have any fears, but I know me, I have fears in general. And although I say I don't have any fears around that based on my experiences, I can't predict what's going to happen in that moment.
Yeah.
I have no idea how I'm going to feel or what I'm going to think in that moment. May very well that fear of death come in at that time for whatever reason, just like it did when I was at that crossroad and, like, you know, I didn't want to cross over. That was probably at some level of fear of death not letting me cross over, right? So
how do you prepare to be prepared, and what do you hope and wish for at the end of life?
I honestly believe that if your intentions in your life and your actions in your life are to lead a compassionate life, an ethical life, and you do the best you can, that's really important. You know,
what's your hope? Like, what's your hope that when you're on your deathbed, like, that you are what
I'm going to experience when I die?
Now, what is your hope? Like, my hope, for example, is that I am at peace and connected, you know, like I am connected to source, that in that moment, that's my hope.
Right.
So then you have to prepare for that internally.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure people have similar hopes, but if you were to fast forward and you have, like, you know, a timeline, right?
My hope is I really do get to see my loved ones when I pass over. I do want to have that experience. There's teachings around, you know, that's a lower level and it's not always what you want. You want to go higher and skip that, but I don't want to skip that. I want to have that experience of meeting my loved ones. Even though I've met them numerous times in this lifetime and experienced it, I still want to meet them again. And
you want to be reunited.
I want to be united with them. And maybe travel the journey together to where I need to go from there, rather than go on my own.
That sounds beautiful. Yeah, because you do hear about loved ones coming to receive, you know, people dying, and they see.
Yeah, and I've been in situations when I've been around someone dying. A friend of mine was passing, and she said, for example, that, you know, it was really interesting. She said, there's these two men standing here. They're really tall, and it looks, they want me to go with them, you know. They want me to go with them. And I'm saying, no, I don't want to come with you. I don't know who they are. And then the second time they come to her, she's like, feels differently this time. She's like, no, this time I think I want to go with them. I'm going to go with them. And so in that experience, I realized, well, maybe it's not always a family that comes to you.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Interesting.
Because in this case, she didn't know who these were. She said they look identical, but they feel different. So
Wow, maybe she recognized them the second time around.
maybe she did.
Maybe she
She
did.
did.
So fascinating and so mysterious. Is there anything else you want to share about, in particular, death and dying, or anything related to that?
Anything about death and dying other than that? No, I just think it's really important for everyone to know that everyone's death journey is unique. Everyone's experience is unique. And that uniqueness and that experience, one, is beautiful. Two, it's for you. That experience is for you. So rather than fear it, treat it as something to look forward to, because let's face it, it's inevitable that sooner or later the time's going to come where you're not going to be you're going to be breathing your last breath.
Yeah.
And then the time's going to come when there won't be that last breath and you'll be transitioning. So prepare for it in a way of looking forward to it. Hey, that, whatever's happening, be elated about it, because it's a new experience and it's an experience that's different than is here.
We have to transcend all our fears before that. So lots of work to do before we could do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation about your experiences. And I also wanted to have the audience find out about your metaphysical hub. What can they find there? I think you've got some interesting people you've interviewed, but can you tell us a little bit about that?
So the metaphysical hub came to be sort of as an accident. I used to help a lady by the name of Lois Vinetz and run a metaphysical store in Surrey. And without going into the detail, there came a time when that experience had to die, for lack of a better word. And there was no more metaphysical store. But I still had my clients, and I still had my experience that I had that was so beautiful. And I wanted to do it again. So I wanted another store. I wanted to be able to do it again. But, for something like that, you need resources and you need time and you need energy. And so I'd already interviewed quite a few metaphysical people. And I decided, well, these stories need to be heard by people. They're fascinating. They're everyday, ordinary people who talk about positive thought. They talk about psychic development. They talk about mediumship. They talk about remote viewing. They talk about, 0 point energy. They talk about near-death experiences. And there's, over 100 of them that I've done already. And now I've done even more. There isn't thousands of them, simply because there isn't. But I anticipate that I'm going to have more and more opportunity to do more. But they're very unique individuals, and they're, everyday, ordinary people. So when you look around you, realize that everyone around you is having amazing, unique experiences, and everyone needs to be recognized, every single one, for their beauty and their experience.
Thank you for providing a space to share that, and people can go there and listen
Absolutely.
to those amazing individuals.
So now it's an online thing instead of a physical thing. So basically that's it. Yeah. But explore. It's also an opportunity for you to share your experiences. So if you click on Who Am I? That's where you can tell your story. Tell us about you. Tell us about your metaphysical experiences, near-death experiences, spiritual experiences. Come tell me you want to do an interview with me so that I can share your story with everyone as well. You're welcome to. It's the membership, the monthly membership. It's not very much. I don't even remember what it is, to be honest. You can stay there for a month for free. Your interview, if you book it with me, is completely free for the first interview book edit, because the more edits you do, the more time it takes, and I can't make everything always free. So the first edit I do is free. and you'll have your experience on video for you and for anyone else you want to share it with, and to be shared on the hub. So that's my commitment to you.
Thank you so much, Shahiroz. You're doing amazing work, sharing people's experiences. I feel like it's really important to have a community where you can go to, learn from, and share your experiences. So, and thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation with me today.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. I really appreciate you, and thank you for this opportunity.
I appreciate you too. Thank you.
Thank you.